look, if it's such a great idea, why would it require so much selling?
Here's a little bit of a problem I have. I mean, people who are friends of mine know my previous, and there are still to some extent, support of Obama. But didn't he recently give $500 and something million to that solar panel company that went bankrupt?
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
so we have a problem trying to create jobs we drew this with the solar panel company, and now we're going to try to do that in a general sense. I'm a little bit worried about that.
All right, so there's a crisis of confidence here. It isn't working. The same thing has been tried before. It hasn't worked. It would be paid for, he said, but now we find out it's paid for with tax increases.
It's not going to be paid.
I want it to work, but I'm afraid.
And I mean, you heard that clip, Chip Haass, that didn't even sound like the Barack Obama of the healthcare debate, when he was very sure of himself and impassioned. I feel like everybody on both sides is just going through the motions of a play that I've seen before.
Yeah, we're just, I think, and this has been my experience, is that the public is really just beaten down by the current economy. The current state of things is difficult, and for all of Obama's earlier message of hope, I think hope is waning. I mean, there is a real sense that we just keep repeating the same old things over and over again, and quite honestly, and I mean, I get fired up as election time gets near, so I know that I'm going to come back around and believe again in somebody. But right now, I don't feel like anybody is offering really good solutions. And so it's just a disappointing time, I think, in the state of American affairs.
Doug, are we beaten down by the economy, or are we beaten down by a president that keeps grabbing us by the lapels, saying, you got to do, here's another speech, here's another lecture. I mean, how much of that can you do?
It's like when he comes on, I listen for a minute and a half, and if he's not announcing that he's resigning, I turn him off. I mean, this is everybody. I really believe this. The majority of Americans just can't stand to listen to him anymore because we know they are all hollow promises. But there's two things that strike me about this. There are so many provisions in this so-called jobs bill that the Democrat-controlled Senate and House turned down. When he had supermajorities in both houses, he couldn't get it passed. So why would he think he could get key provisions of this bill passed now? The other thing that I was looking at the other day, I get emails from the Wall Street Journal. The budget office just came out with the deficit that we have for August. It's $136 billion for August. That's over $30 billion more than the deficit for August of 2010. I know these numbers can make your head spin, but just stay with me for a minute. Now, in September, at the end of September, when the budget year ends, if we have a budget deficit of $60 billion, which we'll have much more, we're going to exceed the entire budget deficit for 2010, and that's when we had stimulus. We are hurtling down a hill faster and faster and faster, and it's got to stop or we're going to crash.
And who's the person that can make the difference and change? I mean, we had this, hope that we were going to have change, and I think that we are unfortunately in a far worse situation. Can really anybody save us? I mean, really?
No, I don't think so, because look at the Republicans that have been in there forever, whether it's Mitch McConnell, whether it's Orrin Hatch, whether it's even our local, whether it's Kay Bailey Hutchison or John Cornyn, they're part of the problem too. They were in there when spending was out of control, much less than it is now. They are all in it. Every single one of them is in it. And until we get to what Ron Paul says we need to do, just start slashing. I mean, slashing government spending right now. The EPA has increased its budget 120% since Barack Obama became president. He's hired almost 250,000 new federal employees. Just slash it. Get it done. If you need to get rid of the Department of Education, Energy, Health and Human Services, just get rid of it. We don't need it.
But Ron Paul's not going to be the one doing it.
No, but I said what he's saying is absolutely right.
Let me ask you this. Let's use the Nixon goes to China analogy. It took the most rabid anti-communist politician for us to believe that you could go and deal with the communist Chinese. Chip Haass, it probably will take a Democratic president to do the kind of cutting and reductions, because by definition, in modern politics, if a Republican proposes cutting and slashing, he's cruel, he doesn't care, he lacks compassion, he hates black people. It will take a politician whose bona fides are impeccable to say, we literally cannot afford to do these things anymore.
Well, I think that would be a winning
I don't know who that person
combination.
is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I
that's
don't know
what-
anyone. I haven't heard anybody propose it yet, but I definitely think that is one way that it would really work.
The day will come when it won't be a proposal. It'll just be a necessity. The Chinese will come and say, this is it. This is it. The notice.
Give us our money.
And whoever is in charge at that moment will simply have to dismantle all of this.
Well, I definitely think that, unfortunately, we're in this tough situation. You can cut all you want right now, but to some extent, we're facing highest unemployment rates in some time. Businesses are struggling at the middle class level. I mean, I still find a lot of larger businesses that are doing well, are turning great profits, having good quarterly reports. Some are hurting, but many of the large ones are doing extremely well, particularly in the gas industry, which is keeping Texas in a strong place. But so what do? I mean, if you're going to slash when you're approaching 11% unemployment in some cases, what do we continue? How do we handle that? And certainly when you look at health benefits and things like that, the lower middle class people are the ones that are struggling. So if we can find a way to prop them up or to strengthen their cause, then I think we'd have a winning solution when you put that along with slashing the federal budget. But I don't see a way to make that mesh, so there's going to be more hurt in the immediate period if you slash.
There will be. Let me just give you two examples. Canada, which has job growth and has economic growth, within the last 10 years cut their social spending by over 70%. They cut it, just wiped it out. Take a look at Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was like Greece for a long time. They elected a conservative, fiscally responsible governor. He slashed government spending. He slashed the number of jobs. They now have economic growth and their tax base has grown. So it can be done. And yes, there's going to be some more pain, but if we don't do it, we are going to be Greece. I mean, we are hurtling faster in that direction than any other country, more so than France or Germany or Portugal or Spain. We are hurtling in that direction, and it's coming fast. People just don't realize how fast it's going to be
What
here.
we need is Aaron Sorkin to come in and rewrite everything to make it a nice, pretty.
No, this is the Aaron Sorkin script
Oh,
now.
right. This is the Aaron Sorkin.
Unfortunately.
That's what it is. We need. Yeah.
This week, two special elections in the House represented two Democratic defeats. Particularly notable was the defeat of the Democratic candidate in New York 9. That's the Brooklyn-Queens district that was held by Anthony Weiner, where for the first time since 1920, which even Doug Vair doesn't remember.
Yes, I do.
A Republican was elected, and in a heavily Jewish Democratic district, they elected a unknown Republican Catholic. Clearly, is there any other way to understand this than voters trying to signal, even people perhaps who in November of 2012, Chip, will return to the Democratic fold? Isn't this voters saying, we're fed up with you, we're disappointed in you, this is our only way of telling you you're on the wrong track?
You are absolutely right. I think it is the voters' way of saying the Democratic Party is struggling nationally, and I say that as a Democrat. It is a message that we have got to heed and react on. However, I will give you this caveat. If Perry is the hope of the Republican Party going into a presidential election, I don't think he can beat Obama straight up. I really don't. And so to some extent, the Republican Party has this incredible opportunity right now to seize control and to do some things. But I don't see them proposing a candidate, assuming Perry is the guy, who is going to take things in the right direction and be able to win. I mean, that's the challenge. You've got to actually get elected and then go ahead and lead. But I think it's the electoral math is going to be a real challenge nationally for him.
So as much as the Democratic Party is suffering, you really think that Obama can beat Perry still?
Yeah.
After all that, you think people still have that kind of hope?
I think we may have one of the saddest elections that we're facing in some time. And when I talk to a lot of Republicans, they say things like, well, Ron Paul's really the guy we want, but he can't get elected. So
I love him, but he's a little wacky. You have to admit. I love him, but he is
That's
wacko.
exactly
He's
right.
insane.
So if you choose Perry, if he's the one who comes out on top in the primary, when you start setting him up like the third rail being one of the top issues that seems to be continuing to come up. I just don't see the electorate being ready for somebody who looks to dismantle Social
Some
Security.
people,
right now.
though, will always believe, in both parties, there are people who will say, remember when they said that about,
Right.
in the Republican Party, that's Reagan. And also, some people will say, we will be in such a structural place by the fall of 2012 that it won't be a vote for Rick Perry or for whoever that person is. It will simply be a vote to say what Nikki Young just said. Can anyone save us?
ABO.
It'll be a Hail Mary pass. And I agree with you about Rick Perry's limitations. They're considerable. In fact, we've barely scratched the surface. But I you know what? It might just be that by that point, anybody else will get a chance.
That's what I'm saying, is that people are just looking for that person.
But that may also lead to more than one opponent for Barack Obama.
Let's get back to that district for just a second, because if you dig a little deeper and get into the weeds, it's really interesting. 78% of Jewish Americans voted for Barack Obama last time out. This was a district that was about a third, I believe, Jewish. The last week of the campaign, the winner, the Republican, spent $60,000 on media in that district. The last week of the campaign, the Democrat Party spent $1 million, $1 million to $60,000 the last week of the campaign. Now, if that is not a striking contrast that speaks volumes about what a constituency that used to be in Barack Obama's
All right,
back
so it's
pocket.
panic button
They
time,
they
right?
gambled.
It's panic button time.
I think it
Absolutely.
absolutely is.
John Fund at the Wall Street Journal, very smart guy, asked this rhetorical question the other day. He said, what if a committee of prominent Democrats approached the president and asked him not to run? Went to him and said, look, it's not your fault, but it looks like it is. If we can't hold the base, clearly you can't win, none of us can win. Not only will you go down, you're going to drag a lot of other good people in the party down to defeat. I mean, we now see that Dianne Feinstein in California is polling at 40% in her re-election battle. This is California, okay? So if this committee went to him and said, we can tell you're demoralized, Mr. President, you can see it in his voice,
Yes.
in his demeanor, look, you said yourself, sir, you'd rather be a good one-term president than a bad two-term president. We'll take you up on that offer. You can have the first Supreme Court, position that opens up, or whatever it might be. Would he take that? Is that a deal he would take?
No.
Is that a deal he should take?
I think it's definitely something to consider, but I don't think he will, because I think this first 4 years of his first term is about trying to figure out where messes are and what he needs to do. He's just kind of getting into the swing of things. I think the next term, then maybe you, in regards to what you were saying, that maybe that hope is still there, and that's when real action can take place. But it's not a bad thing to consider.
How do things get better? I mean, let's say he does eke out a re-election, Chip Haass. In 2013, the tax hikes that are built into this bill, the tax hikes that are built into his entire economic plan, start to kick in. So he will, at best, preside over another 4 years that will be even less popular than these 4 years have been.
Well, I think so much of this stuff is predicated on the ebb and flow of the economy. So, yes, a lot of the structural things that he has tried to implement, we haven't seen any fruits of that labor so far. But part of it is just cyclical, you know? I mean, I think we've seen that with past presidents. So maybe he catches a wave at some point and the economy does start to pull out.
I don't feel like this is a cycle. I'm sorry, I've been through a few of those. And I even remember, the Carter recession. You felt like, we're going to come out of this. I don't feel that. I feel like something major would have to change, that if we just left this alone, we wouldn't just come out of it because the curve would bend up again.
How many times do we hear that this is the most important election in our lifetime?
Every
time.
election.
Okay, but it truly is a historic election, because if Obamacare is allowed to stand, it will be the demise of the American Republic.
Say what you really think, Doug.
It will be, because of all of the money it's going to cost, all of the taxes on business. You think that we're overtaxed and overregulated now and that businesses can't grow. Wait until Obamacare kicks in. And also these new taxes that he's talking about. I mean, my gosh, how much money do we have to pay, or how bad off do we have to be?
Starting in 2013, there was an article this week, I think, in Forbes called the Tax Cliff of 2013.